Hey everyone, welcome to the Keep 'em Healthy podcast. This is your host, Jamie. We are locked in on season 4. This season is going to be full of curiosity, learning, and great conversation. If this show is helpful to you, please share these episodes and follow this podcast on your podcast apps. Thank you so much for listening. Let's get this conversation started. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. In this episode, we're going to talk with Alicia Jones, who is a certified trainer and wellness coach who works with women over 40 to achieve their health and fitness goals. And today we're going to dive in a little bit to talk about Ozempic. We're going to talk about being over 40 and what that looks like with nutrition and fitness. So Alicia, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to talk about this topic because it is all the rage these days. I get a lot of questions about it.
It is all the rage. Both topics are circling my brain in general. So I'm actually really excited to get diving in and explain some things so that we can have some information to make better decisions in our day to day.
Absolutely. Yeah. And those are the two biggest topics right now, protein and the GLP-1’s or Ozempics and Mounjaros and all that sort of fun stuff. And I love research. So you're in good hands today.
Great. So let's get started with the Ozempic and it's GLP-1’s, right? I said the right letters.
Yeah. GLP-1’s are, they're Ozempic.
Okay.
And Wegovy, for example. And then there is the GLP-1 GIP, and those are known as tirzepatides. And those are like your Mounjaro, Zepbound. Those are the two most popular ones that I'm hearing of. So if weight loss is something that you're really looking for, it would be a GLP-1/GIP.
So why are people choosing to use this? What is the ultimate goal of these GLP-1s?
Yeah, I think many people want it for weight loss, and this isn't the first time we've had something to do with trying to make weight loss easier. I mean, when you think about bariatric surgery, for example, you think about things like, for a long time, there was epinephrine style of treatment, ephedra, for example, these caffeine pills that people used to take that were in gyms to supposedly speed up the metabolism and help us lose weight. I think at the end of the day, it's something that many of us want. It's sociologically desired. It's what we want to be is a certain weight, but also for health purposes. I think a lot of people are feeling like doing it on their own isn't working, and they're either feeling like they don't recognize themselves, they don't have the energy and strength. They really want to lose the weight. They want to lose it for health reasons and for joint health. Maybe now standing up is harder for them. There are a plethora of reasons as to why people want to lose weight, but they're taking this medication as a way to help them. And some people are doing it with what I personally believe is the wrong reason to do it. They want to look good in a dress. And so, they want to lose that last 5 pounds and let's take the easy way and do this. And other people are using that drug that really do need to be on this drug. They have what's called food noise. So they constantly think about food. Basically, they could be eating a meal and already thinking about their next meal. And it isn't as easy to say, hey, suck it up, create good habits, and use willpower to get results. That is not possible for some people that have this food noise. And so what these medications do is quiet down that food noise and actually allow them to start creating healthier habits. So there are a lot of reasons. And then there are other people that have type 2 diabetes who really need to be on that medication to save their lives from that disease, to help with their insulin levels. So those are the main reasons why people want to be on them.
So it does something so for weight loss, does it satiate you or turn off the triggers for hunger? How does it turn off the noise?
These drugs don't just affect your stomach, but they also affect the brain and the signals that tell you how to feel about food and how often you feel about food. So in the stomach, for example, it slows down gastric emptying. That means that the food stays longer in your stomach, and it also slows down peristalsis, which is like the contractions of your intestines. So that is also slower. So when you eat a meal, instead of getting this emptying immediately from food, it's slowed down. The food basically stays in your stomach, but it's also affecting the slowdown or appeasing the signals that are in our brain that affect the reward centers of our brain. So telling us, oh yeah, this feels really good. We want this food, and you're thinking about the food all the time. So it has that effect. So it's not, again, something that's just affecting your stomach. If you take a medication, it is going to affect more than one small pathway or region. So it is not just affecting your stomach, it's affecting your intestines, your heart, your bones, your brain, and your desires.
Okay. And then so for the type 2 diabetes, can you explain the insulin relationship with that drug?
Yeah, so this basically, when you take this, if you have high blood sugar, it's going to help bring down your blood sugar to a normal level. So it is just like as if you were taking an injection of your insulin. This is how it works. So inside of the body, GLP is actually a hormone that helps us with hunger and helps us regulate insulin levels. GLP, GIP, it's the same thing. It's just even to a greater degree. It's what we need for those hunger hormones, and it helps regulate insulin. It's just the GLP, GIP helps to an even greater extent with the gut and kind of slowing things down.
So it seems like it could benefit a lot of people. So why do you say it's being used correctly by the people who need it and then incorrectly by people if what you're saying is like it's going to help with bone density, help with heart health, and help keep us satiated and not overeating? So can you explain your thought process on that?
Yeah, so I think that my big issue is whether or not it's being overprescribed. And I think we need to have better boundaries on who actually gets access to this medication. And so when we take a look, for example, at this medication when it first came out, I mean, I think we all know there was a big boom. Oprah said, hey, everybody, these drugs are excellent. And there was a shortage of them because everybody wanted them. And once again, it comes to who has the funds to take these medications or get access to these medications. And I live in Canada, for example, and so healthcare is free here, and you can also get access to certain medications if you need them. And so those were not available to those that genuinely had type 2 diabetes and their life depended on these medications. I've had clients who needed those medications because they were type 2 diabetic. When you're on a medication because you are type 2 diabetic, it is not as easy as, hey, there's no longer this one medication, I'm just going to switch to a different brand. Every time you do that, it risks your health and well-being. It risks how well you can regulate your blood sugar. You have to be monitoring it very closely. You could have very low lows while you're sleeping and literally lead to death. You know, it's not something that you just want to all of a sudden switch your medication from Mounjaro to Ozempic because now there isn't Mounjaro in stock anymore. Things have switched a bit now. We do have the medications more that are in stock, but there's still a lot of off prescribing, which means that doctors can decide whether or not you have that medication with their own discretion. You know, you go on this medication. If you decide that you're going to go on this medication because you want to lose 5 pounds, I think we need to take a look at this more like an emergency room situation. Who is it that enters the emergency room that it's life or death? They need it now. And if you want to lose 5 pounds, no offense, but that's a paper cut. You can wait your turn for those that are genuinely in need of that medication to get it first, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so are there any negative effects for people who are not the serious ER emergency situation that are the paper cuts once they start using it?
So, okay, first off, the biggest one is I don't think people realize how important lean muscle and bone density is to your overall quality of life. And when any of us decide to lose weight, if we aren't careful with the way that we eat and exercise, a portion of the weight that we lose is lean mass. So lean mass isn't just muscle, it's also a little bit of bone. You've got water, you've got around the organs. It is all of that combined together. We lose lean mass and we potentially lose some bone density as well. When we're on these drugs, it looks like the percentage of lean mass loss is much higher, especially as we age. So that could be anywhere from 15% to some studies have shown 40% of lean mass is lost when you're on these drugs. And if you are over the age of 40, when lean mass is already declining at a faster rate, because that's what happens with age, then you are at an even greater risk of you losing your lean muscle, of losing bone density with that weight loss. And with that, just because you decide one day to go off that medication doesn't mean you magically get your lean muscle, especially with age, because it is much harder to put back on. If you go on Ozempic right now, if you go on Mounjaro or Zepbound, and let's say you maintain the exact weight that you are when you started, you don't lose any weight at all, you don't lose lean mass or bone density that we know of at this moment. The lean mass loss and the bone density that you lose, that has to do with the amount and speed at which you lose weight and what you do when you're trying to lose that weight on these drugs. So, for example, when you're on these drugs, usually because the gastric emptying is so slow, you don't eat that much. So you're not really watching. Next thing you know, you're at 500 to 800 calories. You're fine with your energy levels and you're losing weight. Well, 500 to 800 calories is not enough to sustain your lean muscle, to sustain your bone density. You lose weight, and with it, a percentage of that is going to be your lean muscle and your bone density. So when you're on these drugs, I argue that it is even harder for you to be healthy. What you need to do is be even more critical about how you're eating and what you're eating and the type of exercise you're doing. You have to work twice as hard so that you can lose that weight and get the benefits of the drug, but maintain your lean muscle and bone density to the best possible potential that you can maintain it.
Like when you start Ozempic, you're saying you have to work even harder to maintain your lean mass. Like if you're thinking about health in general and you like, I want to be healthy, but I want to lose the 5 pounds. Instead of going the route of lifestyle changes for those 5 pounds, I can just inject Ozempic quickly and drop those 5 pounds. But then in the health spectrum, you are creating a bigger mountain for you to climb to keep your health at a high rate.
Yes, and also to maintain that weight loss. So first and foremost, when you go on these drugs, you need to understand that you're probably on them forever. Getting off.
Oh my gosh. Forever.
Yeah,
okay.
Forever. Like you go off of those drugs, you're going to gain the weight back. Why? Because gastric emptying goes back to what it was before. You don't have those hormones telling you, hey, like I'm full all the time. Your intestines start working normal. The food noise comes back. When you go off of these drugs, basically you're going to gain the weight back. That's what the research shows. And to put this into perspective, most people that go on the drugs on average, what we know right now is that they're on them for about 13 months. And then after that, it's the side effects that come with these drugs that make them say, you know what, I don't want to be on them anymore. You're much more likely to stay on them if you have type 2 diabetes and you're taking it to save your life than for those that have decided to go on the drug specifically for weight loss. And it's just because food doesn't taste as good. The symptoms are the big thing, feeling like you're going to vomit, having what some of my clients that have to be on these drugs call the injection day, which means you feel sick, queasy. It's like you get acid reflux or your stomach feels constantly full. You feel sick for a day. That's something you have to take into consideration, not to mention no longer having that desire for food the same way. And food is social. We to have food in our lives. And so that because that pleasure isn't there anymore, people go off of that. So you have to stay on these drugs and decide that even if you feel that way, you're going to continue to stay on them. But if you do go off of them, okay, great. You don't get your lean mass back that you lost. So now you have less lean muscle. You then go back to eating the way you did. We have to remember that lean muscle is highly metabolically active. It means when you're sitting down, reading a book, watching TV, you're burning more calories if you have lean muscle than if you don't have that lean muscle. So now you don't have that same metabolic burn that you had before either, even if it was a little bit. And so you gain back weight and then some. So you gain even more weight afterwards. So we have to take into consideration that for weight loss, but it is also the fact that lean mass is in charge of our quality of life. Especially think about leg muscles. You go from standing to sitting. You walk up the stairs. You trip over something and catch yourself very quickly. So if you no longer have that same benefit, your quality of life declines. And that's something that we need to think about. And that's not even me getting into the topic of bone density.
Wow. I personally, I had not heard any of this. This is all new information for me to hear, because what we see on the commercials and what we see is like, everyone's having a great time. People are getting ready to go out and they're like, they look good in their new outfits and, you know, they're cinching up their belt. And so I never knew that, number one, it is a medication for a specific reason. And like you're saying, it could be a life or death situation for a type 2 diabetic. However, the way it's presented, the way that I saw it is more for weight loss. And you're telling me that this for weight loss is only a Band-Aid that might create a bigger wound in the future for you. And with the lean mass and all of that, especially for a lot of my listeners who are over 40, that's a big deal. And I hope doctors are relaying that information, because that is a game changer. Quality of life is a huge deal, especially for people listening to this podcast, because they want to be healthy. They want to have a high quality life. They want to be running with their kids or their grandkids. They want to keep up and do the exercises and be with their friends the way they want to. So this is good information, Alicia. I really appreciate it, because I'm like, whoa, this is not what I heard or what is being presented. And this is why I love the show.
I do want to make it clear, though, that I'm not against Ozempic or Mounjaro or Zepbound. I think that there's a place for it and a group of people that desperately need this medication. If you are suffering from obesity and you have always had that thought of food, you cannot get over those feelings about needing to eat all the time and watching everything. It's just exhausting to do that, because psychologically it's incredibly hard for you. I do think you need to be on the medication. I think if you're a type 2 diabetic or you have metabolic syndrome, yes, you need to be on that medication. I think my issue is the overuse in populations that just want to look good and aren't willing to do the work. And I think that's where the fine line comes in. I argue that it is harder work when you're on these drugs if you want quality of life and you want also to have the benefit of weight loss and your best health.
I appreciate that. And I love that you wrap that up in a bow for us, because I want to segue this now. So let's just say after hearing this, maybe there were people thinking like, maybe that's what I want to do, maybe not. But then they're like, wait, I am 55 years old. I really don't have to lose a lot. I'm not battling that noise in my head of food and I'm not obese or have type 2 diabetes. So here's what I would like to know. So how do I, if I want to lose those last 5 pounds, or like, what is a way to keep my quality of life healthy for my age? Where do I start? And what does that look like?
Yeah. So I think everybody over the age of 40, and I argue, hey, the sooner you start this, the better. You need to be doing weight training. You absolutely need weight training. We talked about that metabolic power that is lean muscle and lean mass. And so we need to have lean muscle in order to rev up the metabolic rate. It is also in charge of that quality of life. And the one thing I didn't mention before, muscle, when you're working it, it pulls on bone, which creates more demand on bone and better bone density. And especially for us as women, at that estrogen levels drop, we no longer have that protective benefit of estrogen to help with bone density, to help with muscle growth, and to help keep our hunger hormones in check in that way. Weight training is really, really important for us to be doing. And you don't need to be an athlete. You can do 2 to 3 times a week of weight training, and you're going to be in this great place where you can start to maintain your lean muscle and get some rev in your metabolic rate if you're just starting out. And then on top of that, we want to look at high intensity interval training. People get scared when I talk about high intensity interval training. They think that I'm going to ask them to jump on boxes and run as fast as they can, skip rope, and do these intense huff puff things that they just feel is so exhausting, especially when they don't have the energy to begin with. And if you're just getting started, high intensity interval training, those short bursts of all out intensity that's followed by rest could be something as simple for you as walking up a flight of stairs and taking a break and then doing that again. It doesn't need to be something that's very high impact or something that's going to take hours. In fact, high intensity interval training, when done right, should be short, quick, and to the point, and then you're done.
Which is great. And I think you're right when you said that a lot of people, when you say high intensity interval training, they're thinking of like red face, sweat, like wet hair from the sweat, like crazy grunting and like doing crazy activities. To some people that looks not sexy and not cool. And they're like, I don't want to do that. Like, I'm not going to do that. And so I can see how it could change their reaction when you say, wait a minute. Actually, it's just, can you just go up the steps and back down and then take a break and then do that again? And they're like, oh yeah, I actually can do that.
I get people too that they can't jump at all. Like, I mean, they need, and I'm not saying you can never jump, especially I get people that have osteoarthritis. And so they're like, I'm never going to be able to do jumping. It's always going to hurt. I'd argue if you surround the strength around those muscles around your joints, you may eventually be able to do heel drops, which is where you lift your heels up and then just drop. But I get it. Some people are jumping is out completely, but you can still do things like power walking. You can get up. There are power walkers that walk faster than marathoners. So I know you can still use power walking, swimming. You can do these things to still get your heart rate into a higher zone without having to have this intense jumping or intense activity that just feels absolutely impossible and painful to do at first.
And I think also when it comes to power walking or swimming, I'm friends, accountability and of socializing, I can walk for hours if I am in conversation with people. I think it is the most like refreshing. I don't even know that I'm doing it. An hour will go by and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just walked that amount. Now if I'm by myself, totally different story. It feels like, okay, how much more time do I have to go? What do you think about rebounding? Isn't that type of like a trampoline jumping?
Yeah, I like rebounding as well. I was just speaking to somebody about it as well because it's really great for lymph drainage, which we're not even getting into that topic today, but rebounding is really great. And you can also get your heart rate up. You might end up doing high intensity interval training on a rebounder as well. So I like it. Yeah.
Would that work in hand in hand with the bone density as well, since you're doing this? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And a lot of people are talking about vibration plates as well. I don't know if
never heard of that. What's that?
those Madonna used to use them. I don't know if she might still use them, but she made a whole room out of like these vibration plates, which are like basically you're on something that's vibrating very lightly. And if you're on these plates, it's basically stimulating bone density. So if you want to be on one of these plates and do some weights at the same time, there's actually some research to show that it will help with bone density. So if that's something you want to work on, or if I have a client that is like, okay, I really want to work on my bone density, that's number one. I always ask, okay, is getting a vibration plate something that you would look into? And, because it can help, definitely.
Wow, learn something new every day. Love it. Vibration plates. Love this. So let me ask something about bone density. Once you lose, so let's just say you're starting to get your bone scans and you see these numbers. Can you bring your bone density back up? Or are you just trying to keep it status quo as you age because it's kind of an uphill battle to bring it back up?
It is really hard to bring it back up, but you can bring it back up. And again, it depends on your level of degradation. So what stage are you at? If you're a full osteoporosis, then I think what you're trying to do at this point is maintain your best quality of life, your strength. That is what you're trying to do. But there is research now that's absolutely showing that putting demand on bone and making sure that the way you eat also helps with bone density can help increase bone density. But let's put this into perspective. It takes about 1 to 2 years to really increase bone density. We're increasing bone density at a percentage of about 1 to 2%. Okay. So if at the end of the day, let's say you're doing a little bit, not a lot, like maybe you're, changing the way you eat a little bit, doing some exercise, not consistent with it. Just remember the degradation or breakdown that is accelerated more with age and depending on what stage of osteopenia or breakdown of bone you have. So you are battling this increase of 1 to 2%, but what is the decrease? We need to make that even, or you need to have that increase as being the higher. Otherwise, you're still decreasing. There's not really much you're going to do, or you're maintaining. So it's a lot of work. It's something you need to say, listen, I'm starting to have bad bones, and this is my number one goal is to work on bone density and work on all the things to do better, to get better bone density.
Okay, so we talked about fitness for the bone density. So now that we're over 40, what are we doing nutrition-wise to help with that?
Yes. Okay. So with age, your protein levels are going to go up. So protein becomes the number one most important. I argue that number one as well is fiber. So protein and fiber are your top two things. And I think right now there's a lot of emphasis on protein. And I love that because it helps enhance lean muscle. It helps us feel more satiated. And protein gives a very, very small metabolic benefit as well, which means that when you eat it, in order for us to break it down in the body, our metabolic rate rises a little bit higher than if we're having like a carb or a fat. It's not a lot, but if the goal is weight loss, I mean, every little bit helps, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. The issue that I see, at least with people, is that they're so focused on protein right now that they work so hard to get that number and throw to the wayside fiber. And fiber, not only is fiber filling as well, which helps us maintain a healthy weight or lose weight, but fiber pulls all of the waste out of our body. And especially as for women, as we age, we start to accumulate the bad types of estrogen that's inflammatory, estrogen that causes greater risk of breast cancer, certain types of cancers in the body. And so what we need is a high fiber diet that's going to help pull out the bad estrogens and also help us feel full and healthier. It helps with cardiovascular disease, certain cancers. It is really important for health, but it also helps us maintain a healthy weight or lose weight. So those are the two together. If you decide to eat higher protein, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're eating a cow every day. You can also get your protein from, plant-based sources, as long as your diet is varied and you're hitting your protein numbers as well as your fiber.
Is there a system of protein per age? Like, so for example, if I'm 45 versus 65, am I still trying to hit the same protein requirement?
No. There's a big acceleration at 65. So
Okay.
definitely at 65, your protein levels go up. It also is dependent on your activity level. How active are you? Are you just lifting weights a couple of times a week? Are you trying to get in that incidental exercise? So walking up a hill, that is less activity than somebody that is considered a high performing athlete or a high performing exerciser that's doing something really intense most days of the week. Because exercise breaks down lean muscle. It's the after effect of exercise that builds up lean muscle to a new higher level. So it really depends on your activity level. At 40, the research tends to show that if you're moderately to not very active, 1 to 1.5, 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. And then if you are 65 plus, we're talking about 1.2 to 1.6. And now some researchers even showing, depending on your activity level, 1.8 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight.
Can I ask you what your go-to fiber route is? Like, is there something that you do every day to make sure you get your fiber?
I don't do it every day, but I'm very varied. So I always keep frozen bags of brown rice. I love refried beans and I love beans. So I'll do like a lentil soup, which is higher in protein as well as fiber. And then I'll add some chicken into it to up the protein level even more and have some side vegetables. I think a lot of people think automatically it's like, let's have a lot of veggies. And I'm all for eating the veggies, but your best bang for fiber is actually legumes, beans, lentils. They are very high in fiber and they also give you the best bang of your buck for protein. So I love that sort of thing. I do a lot of huge veggie soups as well that are very, very high in fiber. And I'll have that with something on the side like salmon or, I love salmon. I love chicken, and I'll have that for my high fiber. I'll have like cauliflower rice mixed with brown rice, mixed with Mediterranean veggies, for example. So it's very high in fiber and very high in protein.
I like what you said about the soup, because for some people, vegetables can be hard for them to digest, and even beans as well. So when you have it in a soup, it already has it broken down a little bit for you and it's a little easier on your GI. So if you're listening and you're thinking, if I have vegetables, I'm a gas machine, or if I have beans, so that's really good advice, is like put them in a soup, let them slow cook, let it break down all the different things so that when it goes into your system, it's already basically partially digested so that you can reap the benefits without having the after effects of the different things that you may experience.
Not only that, that's one of the reasons why I'm not a big salad person. This is probably too much information, but I have IBS. So eating like raw veggies a lot for me is too central. It's not good. And, when it comes to beans, as long as you're cooking them, it should help with that. But when I get a lot of people that have gas and they just started eating like a serving or two of beans, when I take a look, because I ask people to log so I can see what they're doing. When I take a look, they've gone from like 10 grams of fiber up to 30 or 40 grams of fiber with this serving in the span of a week. And your body needs to catch up with that. That your microbiome, all of the little organisms in your intestines are affected big time with that. And they cannot keep up. If you're going from no fiber to a lot of fiber right away, you're going to have a lot of bloating and gastrointestinal problems. So I suggest before you decide to take it out completely, start with a very small serving. Like get an idea of where your fiber content is. And if you see, like if you're logging using like MyFitnessPal or something and you see I've only got 10 grams of fiber most of the days, just go up to 15 grams and then stay there a while and then go up to 20 and then work from there.
That's good advice because we all want to reach our goals like right away, but it is a step-by-step process. And that includes the exercise portion. You're not going to go from being, not working out to all in a CrossFitter every day of the week. So that's something to keep in mind. These are goals that it's step-by-step that you can get there, and you will get there if you're committed. Okay. So Alicia, thank you so much for coming on the show. I feel like there's a lot to absorb, but it's just really good redirection too of we as consumers of all this different data from commercials to podcasts to what our doctors are telling us, we don't always have the full spectrum. So it's really nice to be able to share with people just, hey, just in case you didn't know, like just want to give you some more information and so that you can make a better educated decision for your health journey and your wellness journey. And I appreciate your time and your energy. Is there anything going on right now that you are working on that you would like to share with my listeners?
If people want to know about more of the science-backed research to do with weight loss, strength, and your best quality of life over 40 and over 50, then I have a free masterclass. I'll give you the link to that and people can check it out on their own.
We will add that link to the show notes, and we will also add the links and socials and all that for Alicia Jones and everything that she has to offer. So listeners, thanks for coming here and listening to this podcast today. And Alicia, thank you so much for being on my show.
Thanks for having me.